Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of y'all, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Before I get into the topic, I will ask a question. Any of you that teach online, but in real time, not pre-recorded, and then uploading it like what we do here on YouTube, please let me know which platforms you find to be the best. Do not suggest to me Moodle or Udemy, because Moodle I could not install, and Udemy apparently requires pre-recorded uploads. And thanks in advance. Please leave any info in the comments section explaining which platforms and why. Looking them up has led to information overwhelm. Now, I'm going to start the topic by first thanking Abdullah bin Babi At-Taaeb, who sent to me a link to one of Daphne Springs' comedy stand-ups. And she joked, but in a manner in which we now know is the truth, about not having anyone to reject post-pandemic. How men don't approach anymore. And she blames the pandemic. And I did say a while ago, and so too did other YouTubers, content creators, that when men now must stay at home by themselves, or had to at that point, they would learn that they could actually live without them drawers. A lot of them weren't getting a whole lot of draws anyway, and they realized, you know what, since being at home, I get about as much tail as I did when I was out moving around trying to get it, and now I got more money. So the only result is I'm saving money now by not moving around as much. Oh, okay, cool. That's led to a situation in which a lot of guys now say, you know what, these women want us to stay away, and we can do that. We don't have to get up in them guts to live. It is healthier, but hell, they're bringing disadvantages that outweigh the health benefits. So that's what's going on. That's what we're facing. That's what we're dealing with. That's what they're facing. She couldn't even hide it in comedy. And everyone laughed, men and women alike, so they understood. It's a joke, but it was real. If it was not real, the women would not have laughed. They would have thrown something at her. Now, that's not all. I'm going to give a shout out to Saeed, Saeed, and thanks to him, because he sent me a screenshot of a comment left by Bokushingo's Kendo TV. Now, I don't remember under which video he left the comment, but he left a long comment explaining how, working as a nurse in a hospital in California, a sister got a job there. He was the only black nurse till she came in. He's single, she's single. They chat, just chatting. He's nice. He's not pushy. They share some interest. And so when he mentions going to see the Spider-Man movie himself, she says she also wants to see it. So he said, well, if you DM me, you're welcome to join me. Not asking her on an unwanted date. She never said anything. He went and saw it by himself. No biggie. Went back to work. And guess what? He found out that she was telling coworkers that he had asked her out on an unwanted date. His superior told him, don't take any patients that she's already had. Yeah, it's like that. Later, a Japanese nurse gets a job there, Chicago. Through chatting, they found out that they shared some interests that were based in or specific to Japan or associated with Japan. And she then asked him out to some event in front of others, and he took her up on that, and they're now a couple. I hope that they have a happy and successful marriage in the future, because for me, dating is something you do in a marriage, but at least they have what it takes to get that far. True to form, the sister got him in the parking lot one day and said to him, you weak SOB. Just like every other black man, you get some money and succeeded and you date outside the race. You should have known I was just testing you. Yeah, it's like that. That's what happened. See, she did this to herself. She just had to brag about rejecting. And this is something that Western women in general do. The difference is that white women tend to do this more with white men, and sisters tend to do this more with us shines. But Highlight, that's his name, a commentator under my video about Nora Ned Vinson, wanted to challenge me because of my views on how white men and black women tend to be. Let's look at how this works. Sisters are hard on shines, bragging about how they turn us down, and they get points for this. Becky is hard on Brad, bragging about how many Brad she turns down, and she gets points for this. She's more careful when it comes to a shine, because she doesn't mind having a bunch of relationships before marriage, long as good catches for husbands don't know about this. That's not all. Shines tend to be a bit more careful dealing with Keisha or dealing with Becky. We don't try to run either one of them off usually. But Brad ain't interested in Keisha. So Highlight had to let me know that he's an exception to that, and that's fine. Okay, if you treated well the black woman with whom you're in a relationship, that's great and dandy, that's fine. Of course, you're going to come along and say and raise your hand under my video and say, I'm an exception. Yeah, okay, and that's fine that you were. And I'll take your word for it. But the pattern is that white men show when they do get in relationships with black women that these black women are not equal to white men in their eyes. They tend to show this. See, Irene Gawk's boyfriend has been arrested for accessing her money illegally after her disappearance. They can't pin the disappearance or her death on him. And I expect her to be dead. Like I said, I don't want her to be dead. I expect her to be. There's a difference. I'm not calling for anyone to do her in. I think somebody already did it, and I wish it wasn't true. But these aren't what's pinned on him. And she's not even African American. She comes from a country not associated with that attitude. Now, Nairobi is known to be a game-playing central. It's not only the capital of Kenya, it's the capital of games. This is how Kenyans see it. But the country's not associated with this. Guess what? She left Kenya, went to Wyoming, and vanished, messing around with one of the Mzungu. I don't know what happened. I know what the pattern is. They turn up missing or sent to the upper room in some way that is not easy to pin on whichever Mzungu male with whom they were messing. This is what winds up happening. Shines don't tend to turn up dead as often dealing with Becky's. It can happen. Christian Obumseli, if he could talk, would tell you that. But that's not a pattern. We tend to suffer in other ways. I mentioned that. But hell, the same ways we suffer from Becky, we suffer from Sapphire and earlier on. So we're not the same. See, brother, you travel and you're wanted. Even if they're not going to treat you well, you're still wanted enough. Keisha tries to jump the fence and she finds that she's sent back, maybe even unalive. She's not wanted. Even in Morocco, Moroccan guys will beat up on Saudi men if they catch these Saudi men chasing Moroccan women, even if these are just the Moroccan women that are ladies of the night. They still will beat them if they can catch them alone. They don't like that. Because they know that Saudi men would fight any of them even for trying to marry a Saudi woman. And they view Saudis as being the dirtiest. Now, if a Saudi man travels there and he's on business and he doesn't go into areas that are questionable, they'll leave him alone. They might watch him, but they'll leave him alone. They don't beat up on African American men who go there. Why? Because they know at least we're going to marry. But when an African American woman goes to travel to Morocco, they know the difference. They'll say, oh, she's a tourist from America. Now, she's welcome to buy. But you know what we're not going to do? We're not going to treat her like she's one of us. Because we already know how they get down. We also know that this woman here is the reason that we now have to compete with their men to marry our women. They don't hate us as men. But when they see the competition, any blame for that competition, they put squarely on her shoulders, because they say if she would look after him over there, then we wouldn't face as much competition over here. And honestly, it's not a whole lot of competition that we're offering there. Most Moroccan women will wind up married to Moroccan men. It's just that the phenomena of Black American men going and marrying women is known. It's more famous than it is actually common. And they know that. They all know about it, but they also don't all know someone that did it. Nonetheless, again, because how do I know? See, when I was getting ready to marry my ex, one of the things she said was, are you one of the African Americans that likes 4C hair? She knew. And I said to her, I'm one of those that likes natural hair. Don't dye it blonde. And if it's shampooed and smelling nice, I'm fine. So you see, we're not the same, and people understand this. They get it. When I was in Malaysia, I saw African American women, and they were by themselves. Now, when I would move around, I could easily get into conversations with people when I was there with my wife. We could easily get into conversations with other men, with women, just generally being friendly, because the people there are naturally friendly. They did not harm African American women that I saw, but the African American women were the ones that moved around by themselves frequently. I didn't see anybody being mean to them. They just didn't want to say anything. And that was the end of that. You see, the other thing I noticed was that if another woman was cute, people would look maybe twice. But if an African American was nice to look at, they still didn't get any second looks. Now, I'll say this too. You know what? I'll skip that. I simply wanted to point out that every time something happens, they show that we're not the same. We're not surprised that a Brad put up a video saying these are the women in the 50 states I've dated. And reverse images show that these women didn't even live in the same states, the names of which were written on their photos. I mean, come on, he's a normal guy talking about dating 50 women. That doesn't happen in most cases. Men don't date 50 women. A man who can date 15 women can just smash a bunch of them and not date them. Those of us who can't just smash them and not date them can't date them either. As we know how women select men now. But when he stated this on the video, we know that sisters started questioning how come ain't none of them got no melanin, even Hawaii, because he went to Hawaii to get that tan, blonde, white woman. That's why. That's his choice. That's his preference. He prefers his own. A lot of people do. Matter of fact, men tend to be more race loyal when it comes down to who they pick than women. It's women that sit up and say, if you got enough money to buy my husband out, you can get this too. That's how a lot of women feel. A lot of them look at you like, no, you're means to an end. And in the West, it's more exaggerated because there are time limits on the loyalty that traditional non-Western women might have. Even here, it's there. It can run out, but it's there. You already know where you all are still living and where I used to live. There's not even a time limit. It stops right as soon as you fall on any kind of hard times. It's over. And that's it. We're not the same. And it's not only that we're not the same because we don't want to be as guys. We're not the same because these sisters have sat up and decided they are absolutely not going to be the same. They don't want to be us. That's what that comes down to. What they're looking at is they're simply looking at us and they're saying, okay, well, you know what? We don't want to be the same as you. We don't want to be tied to you. We don't want anything to do with you. And oh yeah, by the way, as soon as somebody else comes along that has a little something and likes us more, we're going to leave you for them. See, you haven't said that, black man. In a nutshell, we're not the same. And I've stated this multiple times that we're not the same. But what I'm stating in this case is that we're not the same because she's insisted on us not being the same. I saw an image that Mahdi Tijani posted. And it says, it's a sign up. And it says, I'm not interested in competing with anyone. I hope we all make it. And it's properly punctuated too. Y'all know I'm a stickler for that. Mahdi Tijani says, if you resonate with this, you're a loser. If you're not interested in competing, it's because you're scared to lose, as you should be. I'm scared to death of losing. I hate losing, and that's what makes winning so sweet. When there was a real chance you could have failed, but you didn't. You triumphed, you overcame, you won. Life must be divided into winners and losers. It has to be that way. How else would you distinguish the worthy from the unworthy? Now, my brother, whatever battle you're facing in life right now, go out there and win. Now, he sits up and he says this, and he tells you that the fear is okay. But what he says is that if you resonate with that, you're a loser. No. You're a loser when you refuse to compete when it becomes necessary. You don't have to be interested in competing as a man. You have to be prepared and willing to compete when necessary. I hope we all make it. That hope, that sentiment is not wrong. In a nutshell, he and I are almost saying the same thing. Almost. It's a question of degrees, really. It's just a question of degrees that separates what I'm saying from what he's saying. Maybe I'm just wording better what he's saying. It's okay to hope that we all make it. You have to be prepared for the reality that not everyone will. That's what that really comes down to. But the thing is this, I want you to pay attention to the first line that he said. Actually, the first two. If you resonate with this, you're a loser. If you're not interested in competing, actually, he put in quotation marks, I'm not interested in competing because you're scared to lose. This is exactly what we would have to sit up and say to Keisha if you want to get into a discussion, because she's saying this to you. Even though you didn't say, I'm not interested in competing, because that's not how we talk. Simply put, you looking to compete when there is a competition and there's something worthwhile for which to compete. You simply limiting competition to that. When it's there and when there's a worthwhile reason to compete is enough for her to look at you and say, you're a loser. You scared to compete. Meanwhile, The reality is she's looking at you and saying, I know I'm a loser. Actually, I think I'm a bigger loser than what I am. And ain't no damn way I'm going to compete for this man. Because number one, I won't win. Because I refuse to, because I'm lazy. Because I'm broken. And number two, I simply don't think that he's worth the competition. And we all know that other men, having had done to them what black men have had done to them, would have fared far worse in the eyes of other women. We know this. So how these black men have this stuff done to them and still manage to come out better than what we would have expected any man to come out, even in the mating markets. How did this man, having all this done to him, manage to come out attractive to other women? Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, that sister doesn't, she wants to say that you're not worth the competition. But on the other hand, she does realize why it is that other women would want you. She's shocked at how much, but she understands why they would. How do you know? The reason I know, gentlemen, is because most of the time, as I've stated, when I was young, I didn't compete with most of you because of what I didn't know, but most of us didn't when we were young. As I got older and I learned more, I still did not compete with most of you brothers because I wasn't black enough. I just wasn't told what it was until I was 24. As I stated in 2017, I told y'all about it, but the conversation was in 2001. Well, actually, I told y'all about it in 2020. I remembered it in 2017, but the conversation was in 2001. Yeah. I'm sorry I didn't make this shorter. But in order to cover this, I couldn't. So you see, yeah, gentlemen, when I didn't compete, and I was told this more than once, but I was really explained in depth once. Explained to this, I was told about this in less depth later on, but I was told about this in depth, really in depth, mostly one time, that it was the lack of blackness for which I could not compete with you. Stop and think about that. What does that mean? And I'm talking compete with you just in the arena of other sisters. These sisters find you attractive in some ways and unattractive in others. But the things about you that do attract him, they still hate themselves for being attracted to you. And that's why one reason we're dealing with such hostility. See, when they're not attracted to you, the contempt is for you. But when they are, then they have a contempt for themselves. That's what it comes down to. That's what you're facing, gentlemen. Not me, because I left. But that's what you're facing. You have to deal with this as long as you stay there and until the day you leave. You have to face this because they don't want anything to do with you, but they can't help but still be drawn to you in certain ways. However, there is one thing they are trained to not like about you, and that is when you are a genuinely good person. They're trained to find this unattractive by associating it with weakness. And a lot of you, you're not saints, but a lot of you are genuinely decent. And there are things you just aren't willing to do to other people, even when you don't like them. A lot of you were easily riled up to look down on non-ADOS black folks, and that's up fuck, really. But how far are you really willing to go to harm some of them? Most of you were easily riled up against them only by being told that they dislike you and that they hate you and look down on you. If you had never been told this, you wouldn't even have those sentiments. Because at heart, most of you are decent. You're more likely to stop and give change to someone that's down and out. You're more likely to actually be concerned. You are more likely to actually come to the aid of a kid if a kid is being kidnapped in public. You are more likely to chase after a car if someone jumps out, grabs a kid, jumps back in the car, and it speeds off. You're the one more likely to jump in front of, if there's a mass shooting somewhere, you're more likely to jump in front of the bullets trying to stop him from hitting somebody else, especially women and kids. And I'm saying everything I just said is based on news stories. So I ain't making this up. And most white guys are generally decent. I mean, they don't really want to harm anyone either. You're more likely to go out of your way to try to stop somebody from being harmed. So to be honest with you, these things that other people can see, even the Arabs amongst whom I live will say this about you. Whether you're Black American or another Black nationality, they'll say this about you. Did you know that? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I've had some of them say to me here, oh, yeah, Black folks hate injustice. We know this about them. I was like, oh, wow. Because you see, that's exactly what some classical travelers, Greek and Arab alike, used to write when they would go into Africa and deal with Black kings. These are people who hate injustice, and the thief is not to be found here. Yeah, people have written stuff like this. They used to call Ethiopians, and that pretty much meant all Africans south of Egypt. The Greeks used to call Ethiopians blameless. Stop and think about that. And to this day, Eidos or not, people look at you, and on one hand, they may be scared if they believe certain stereotypes. But even then, they believe that as long as you have enough in life, you are more just and fair than they are. I didn't realize this for a while, that sometimes even men of other races, especially if there's no class division, are intimidated by our sense of fairness and justice. I didn't realize this for years. That's why it's taken me so long to record this. I got to tell you, I said we're not the same, but I got to tell you why I say it, just to be fair. Yeah. And the thing is that when you're dealing with other Black folks, they may say this about our people, both genders, but when you're dealing with Americans, ADOS, FBA, that's when they start looking at us and they start to wonder about the sister. Because they know, and they know that some sisters are firm but fair. They know some sisters have a nasty attitude, but they're fair. They know this. But the question is, why she got to have a nasty attitude? That's unfair. They know that if you correct them when they were already correct and they explain, wait, we agree, we're on the same page, you'll say, okay, got it. All right, we'll work together on this. They also know that when it comes to an African-American sister, if she corrects them about something and they were already right, and they say, wait, we're on the same page. Yeah, that's what I thought. Neck rolling, finger snapping. You better agree. That's what they see on TV. Because you see, the things that we know American sisters to say because they got nasty attitudes are translated in movies. So non-English speakers can watch an American movie and read the translation on the bottom of the screen in their own language. Oh, yeah. Black Panther came out in Saudi Arabia. It was released the same time here, maybe about a week after it was released in the US. It was actually the first movie officially released within Saudi Arabia's borders. Did y'all know about that? It's the first movie released in the kingdom. Black Panther from 2017. As soon as we were watching it in English, the first copy I saw of it actually had the subtitles written at the bottom of the screen in Arabic. So you see, if I see my students and I say to them, long live Wakanda, because I'm not allowed to say forever, except in reference to either Allah or the afterlife. So if I say long live Wakanda, they know where it comes from. Now, some of them made the mistake of thinking that it was an actual country. That was their error. But they know where everybody learned about Wakanda, the movie Black Panther. This actually opened up a lot of their eyes. Remember that in 2016, the summer of 2016, the world learned about what we Black Americans were facing due to police brutality and racism in America. They found out. I told you all about my close friend who, my closest friend who had to issue an apology to me. I mean, he came to me and apologized on behalf of his family, because they didn't believe what I told him about the racism before. Well, guess what? Of course, I told him I accept the apology from you, but not from the others. Because if they found me if they knew that I was telling the truth about other things, why would I just turn around and lie about this? They didn't want to believe it because they were looking at white folks like white folks are normal. And like something was wrong with us. Even with all the things that they know are right with us, they still pathologize us to a certain extent, believing what Massa said on TV and in the movies. However, you know what? When 2017 came and Black Panther came out and they addressed specifically African and African American issues, you know that a lot of them didn't want to say this, but a lot of them knew that Killmonger was right. Sorry. A lot of them looked at Killmonger and said, and they wouldn't say this out loud. But the reason I knew that they agreed with it is because I said it. I could get away with saying that, and I said it, and not one of them disagreed. Somebody even said, one student even said to another student, Black Mind is not T'Challa. He is Killmonger. He is enjoyable. That's him. He said this in response to someone saying to me, because I said that I am an American of African origin, so are you African or are you American, doctor? Which one? And I said, I am both. I am one of those that says I'm African and American, because on the Gulf Coast, Creoles and non-Creoles alike kept African traditions and didn't even know what we were doing. I can tell that we're related when I meet them from the continent. I know. And so when I said I am both, I'm not just one and I'm not just the other. Legally, I'm a U.S. citizen. But I just told you that I am both. That's when one of them said, he's not T'Challa, he is Killmonger, he's Njobu. Now he whispered this. I wasn't supposed to hear him say it, but I did. So I didn't mention this later on. And not one of them, nobody said, oh, that's bad. No, they said, okay, all right. I mean, the student to whom he was actually explaining this, the one that asked the question, said Taaeb, which just means okay. But nobody else protested. If this was a problem, they would have gone and complained to the administration about the student that said that I was enjoyable. When I said the Killmonger was right, you know what? If that had really been a problem, somebody would have said, Professor Black was over here calling Killmonger correct. Oh, yeah. And speaking of which, you know what? I think we need to I do believe that we're going to have to come up with our own superhero. I think we're going to have to do it. You know why? It's because, frankly, we rely on fiction too much. We shouldn't, but we do. But since we do, and they're going ahead and taking Black Panther, and they're not going to recast, and instead they're going to replace him with a whole bunch of ladies replacing men. I suspect that what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to come up with another one. And I think I know who to help do that. Yeah, I think so. So that being said, Black Agent, you've got your work cut out for you. And if you own this, then until the day you sell the character and all the copyrights, nobody else can come along and replace the superhero you create with others. No one can do it. They can't take the title. They cannot take the biological facts, the biographical facts. And those are two different things about the character, and supplant them with someone else. That's the truth behind it. And I'm going to state this too. If you do, in fact, create this superhero, understand that as you get older and maybe you get tired and you want to retire and you sell the intellectual property rights to someone else, you will probably have to sell it for less than what it would actually be worth on the market, just to make sure you sell it to a conscious shine. And that is sad. But at least you know now that that's probably what's going to happen. And I'm not going to lie. Should that happen, should you create, I'm telling you now, Black Agent, if you create with the drawings, then I will help you write the stories. If you can illustrate, then I'll help you write the story. I would state this too, though. Black Agent, what I would ask is that you send your wallet, your crypto wallet, and I post it so that people, if they're not going to donate to me, that's fine, but they could actually not even would even be donating, but they would be paying in piecemeal for the illustrations and the storylines and the plots. And I'm going to tell you all straight up, the audience, in the event that we start this, in the event that we do, make sure you make it worth his while. Because neither he nor I would expect to make a fortune from this. But simply make sure that you make it worth his while so that he can afford the time to come up with other illustrations and parts of the plot, and not do the rest according to my free time, my spare time. Again, as I stated in the beginning, if any of you who are teaching online but in real time know of a really good platform to start with when you only have a few students, let me know in the comments section. I'm sorry for taking as long as I've taken this time, but There's a reason, but there's a laundry list of reasons that I have to sit up and say we're not the same. And I sincerely hope that what I've said, since I took 40 plus minutes to say it, I hope that this helps you. And I mean that from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Again, hit the share button if it does help. Or if you know someone this will help. Thank you for listening. Black heart, black mind, black out, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual, non-select male power because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.